Hello everyone, Exie here, and this time we'll talk about your waifus and the phenomenon of imaginary friends, voluntary hallucinations, and loneliness. You'll learn how some craftsmen imagine ideal girls and live with them, and sometimes not only live. What is a tulpa? It is a hallucination in which you create a girl, or you yourself are a girl, and imagine people in the most sophisticated ways. Okay, in fact, the word tulpa has several meanings, but to summarize, a tulpa is an imaginary creature that a person creates himself through long-term mental preparation. The tulpa is kind of separated from the personality of its owner and becomes independent. It has a character, its own memory, the temperament of the tulpa, its vocabulary, manner of speech, even addictions can differ from the same of the creator. In fact, the tulpa is a separate person. You can talk to it, catch its smell, even touch it. It would seem that they do not create a tulpa of a good life, right? Usually these are guys, teenagers or older, lonely, insecure, and withdrawn. The tulpa encourages them, supports them, lifts their spirits, and does everything that a real friend should do, which they do not have. Or maybe they never had. The culture of tulpamancy originated in image boards, 4chan, 0chan, 2channel. In general, a lot of interesting shit came through image boards. There, devoted followers of this teaching were quickly found. Who doesn't want to revive their fantasy? But even among the adherents, the phrase is popular that a tulpa is a voluntary way to go crazy. So it's better not to. It all started about 20 years ago. A legendary thread appeared on the 0chan website where a guy was talking about how he ate hallucinogens, locked himself in a room, and went nuts. A goddess appeared next to him, an ideal female being, but he insisted that the goddess was absolutely real. He saw her as clearly as people on the street. People became interested. They found out that the guy was not quite healthy. He initially had mental problems. Plus, they were superimposed on hallucinations from drugs, and a tulpa appeared in his imagination. Soon a new follower appeared on another site who said that he was able to achieve the same effect, but without drugs and schizophrenia. He wrote instructions on how to prepare the brain to create a girlfriend. You had to practice visualizing her image and conduct an endless monologue until someone else, outside of your consciousness, began to answer you. Nonsense? Well, of course it is. The internet caught fire and off we go. Now we have literature about tulpas, their own terminology, specialized sites and publics, trades on image boards, and hundreds of people who, with varying degrees of success, try to create an imaginary friend for themselves. More often, of course, a girlfriend. Trolls are always around the adepts, since it is easy to provoke a tulpa manager. There are two ways to do this. The first is to insist that tulpas do not exist, since no device can detect their presence. Usually, the adherents get angry, start rolling out sheets of text about how the devices are not perfect, invisible spectra may exist, and so on. The troll is pleased. And the second way, test the tulpamancer in person. In theory, a tulpa should live, think, and talk even when its creator is focused on something else. That is, after separation, it becomes a separate person and does not require energy from the owner. The troll's goal is to prove that this is not so. Here are a couple of ways. The tulpa should add, multiply, and divide 2-digit numbers while you distract the creator, or let it count blue cars during a walk, and you again engage the tulpamancer in conversation. Most likely, the tulpa will screw up. This will mean that the imaginary friend has not acquired any separate personality. The tulpamancer has simply learned to convince himself that his inner voice partially belongs to another being. In addition to trolls, there are drug addicts and storytellers among tulpamancers. It is difficult to separate them, because when it comes to imaginary friends, it will not work to distinguish lies from drug ravings based on the text alone. And it is not necessary. At one time, a certain Kladovka appeared on 4chan. The dude lived in a utility room, did not communicate with anyone, did not go anywhere, except for another dose of hallucinogens. Kladovka wrote crazy posts about the war of flying sausages with screwdrivers, incomprehensible nonsense about the voices of plants and the like. At the same time, he summoned a tulpa. As a result, he completely lost his mind. They say that he ended up in a mental hospital, but created a girlfriend for himself. Let's talk a little about the dictionary of a tulpamancer. Over 10 years, a clear terminology has formed. Host is the creator of the tulpa, the one whose imagination and efforts embodied it. Forcing is the process of actively creating a tulpa and the hours the host spends training. Wonderland, or simply wonder, is a place, also imaginary, where the host can forcing and interact with the tulpa before it appears in reality. Welder is a fake tulpamancer who writes posts, talks about his results, forcing, and tries his best to convince others that he is a real host, but does not put any effort into creating. There is an opinion that an eloquent welder can sooner or later become a tulpamancer, since he spends a lot of time thinking up a legend. A waifu is an imaginary girl. You can have sex with her, romance, and other shit. Almost every third host claims to have sex with their tulpa. Many are attracted to the physical side of all this. Is a tulpa dangerous? It is believed that no, it can harm the host, but it is not beneficial for it. The tulpa tries to stay in our reality as long as possible. Okay, there is a story about aggressive assistants, about jealous waifus, about tulpas who appeared themselves and tried to capture the host's creation. But all these texts look like wet fanfiction. Something else is more interesting, how teenagers go crazy trying to shake their own perception for the sake of communicating with an ideal girl. In search of material for the video, I had to dive deep into the tulpamancer environment. And you know, there's a lot of scary shit out there. How many people want to isolate themselves from reality? How many suffer from endless loneliness? How much self-doubt and hope there is in all the messages from young guys who beg experienced hosts on how to get a tulpa the right way. It feels like this is their last hope for many. But for what? I wouldn't want to do this, but I'll do it for educational purposes only. I'll tell you one way of forcing. I'll warn you right away, you don't need to force. You don't need to shake your psyche. To hell with it. So, you've been warned. Let's go. The task of the forcers is to cause a pseudo-hallucination, that is, a realistic vision that is not connected with objects and phenomena from real life. You need to not only believe in something that doesn't exist, but also see it. Anonymous have come up with several ways to do this. First, a character is created. This is the most important thing. The host must know with 100% certainty how their tulpa will react to any words, any actions, and requests. He must know her better than anyone else. Usually, a list of basic qualities is written out, memorized, and in the process of forcing, these qualities are applied to various situations. The ideal result will be that the tulpa learns to react to the world based on its character, and not the mood or desires of the host. What next? Next, the tulpa is clothed in a body. It must look somehow. This includes everything: height, weight, race, hair color, nail length, navel color, number of folds under the knees, and so on. And again, the more detailed the host learns to imagine the tulpa, the easier it will be for it to appear in front of him. People do not peer into each other. You can communicate with a friend for 10 years and not remember what color his eyes are or how many moles on his face. But for an imaginary girlfriend, you need a body in all details, so that later you can pay less attention to it. Some people, in addition to the appearance of their tulpa, come up with Wonderland. This helps to abstract from the pressing and get closer to the source of imagination. What does it look like? The guy gets under the blanket, imagines, say, a gingerbread cave, lights a torch, and goes inside. He can spend hours there, practicing imagining the tulpa and talking to it. Then comes the time for conversations. The forcer forces himself to comment and voice all his thoughts and actions. Then he enters into a dialogue with the tulpa. At first, it cannot answer, especially out loud. Therefore, the host must imagine what the tulpa would answer based on its character. As experienced forcers say, sooner or later it will start answering out loud, and the need to come up with lines for it will disappear completely. Those who are not lazy, force daily, and show persistence sooner or later allegedly achieve their goal. I found 10 or 15 links to blogs of comrades who allegedly brought the tulpa into reality. Most of the blogs are abandoned. Half are dedicated to tulpas in the form of My Little Pony. One blog even turned into a roof repair-themed page. Symbolic, the guy tried to go crazy, but eventually gave it up and started repairing roofs. When it comes to the benefits of a tulpa, the advantages that are listed on forums seem to me personally to be a sign that many lack parental love and support. This is really creepy. You can chew over this topic for a long time, but it seems we will never know if there was at least one person who was able to create a tulpa. Or are there hundreds of them, or is this just another tale from the internet? At the same time, many guys are still trying and trying without any evidence, nothing. How shitty life must be. Religion used to save you from the shittiness of life. And what now? Now a waifu from the subconscious. Lovely. Be careful. Your imaginary Exie was with you. Be sure to write in the comments what your tulpa would look like. Here's the full story. Name, height, habits, and so on and so forth. Just try not to list the girls from Zenless Zone Zero. Although you don't have to try. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and visit my Discord server. Take care of yourself, and bye-bye.